Hello and welcome to the Business Weekly Show on Citi TV. My name is Michael Obodu. Thank you for tuning in to the most watched business show in the country. Ready for 1 hour of business news? Let's go. We start off today with the financial sector cleanup. It's been almost 2 years since some fund management companies were shut down by the Securities and Exchange Commission. After the exercise, the SEC started paying some of the customers. But for some clients of First Bank, actually about 24,000 of them, they haven't received their monies yet. They say they have run out of patience, and if they don't get their monies in 2 weeks, all hell will break loose.
The Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) in November 2019 revoked the licenses of 53 fund management companies due to various breaches, including the non-payment of clients' funds totaling 8 billion Ghana cedis. This action affected clients whose investments were locked up with the various fund management companies. In its quest to rectify the situation and to promote the orderly growth and development of an efficient, fair and transparent securities market, SEC last year published a list of 13 collective investment schemes comprising 11 mutual funds and 2 unit trusts to appoint new fund managers by their respective boards following the revocation of their licenses. Per the SEC update, directors of 6 mutual funds, including First Fund, then operated by First Bank Financial Services, announced TTL Capital as new managers for First Fund. Despite this, there have been complaints by over 24,000 shareholders of First Fund, then operated by First Bank Financial Services, now under the management of TTL Capital, of not receiving their monies of about 170 million Ghana cedis from TTL Capital for the past 2 years. They have therefore issued a 2-week ultimatum to the new fund managers to pay their locked-up funds or face their wrath. In an interview with Citi Business News, spokesperson for the group, Michael Kwabla, called on the Securities and Exchange Commission to, as a matter of urgency, intervene and retrieve their funds.
So First Bank was revoked in November 2019. We're given to a new fund manager, TTL, in January 2020. And there's been some lethargic attitude from the new fund manager. We don't actually see any improvement. We held a meeting in September 2020 where we passed and had ordinary resolutions withholding redemptions and giving them up to 6 months to operationalize the fund. That was supposed to be on 31st March. So we had a message from them that a meeting will be held on April 28th for them to operationalize the fund. On April 26th, they sent us a text message that meeting has been cancelled and that in April they'll give us a new date. We are in June, we've not heard anything from them. When we started mobilizing, I want to do a press conference and send a petition to SEC. This morning they sent us a text message that, they have our concerns. So what we feel is that they don't take us serious. They don't take us. So our press conference today is just the first steps of many steps that we seek to take to recover our money. We've given the board 2 weeks to call a meeting and operationalize the fund, give us about 60% of our investment, provide us with a plan on how to we get the other 40%.
I hope finality is brought to this matter soon so these customers can have their monies. Away from that, a lot of banks now prefer safer investment options like government treasuries, more so because of all that coronavirus has caused in the financial sector. Even though this might be convenient for banks, the Bank of Ghana says it isn't the best for the sector, clearly because it affects negatively banks' willingness to give loans. The Bank of Ghana wants the government to reduce issuance of bonds and treasuries on the local market to address this challenge.
The latest banking sector development report released by the central bank shows that growth in banks' investment holdings outpaced other asset classes due to the higher propensity of banks to invest more in less risky government instruments as a result of the pandemic-induced elevated credit risk and slowdown in credit demand. Investments in bills and securities shot up by 45.9% between February 2020 and February 2021, when the figure jumped from 46.6 billion Ghana cedis to 67.9 billion Ghana cedis, compared to the growth of 7.2% in the prior year. While speaking on the situation, Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, described it as concerning and called for a culture change.
On one hand, we are concerned that the banks are not investing in the private sector, why they are not lending and properly intermediating. And then on the other hand, we are also concerned about the NPLs in the economy, and this is really why the banks are being so risk averse in lending to the private sector. I think that culture has to be changed. There are people who borrow and they think that they cannot pay. And when you do that, you create these types of difficulties. And then we get up and complain that the banks are not lending. But why would they lend if they are only going to be throwing customer deposits after, bad risk?
He also added that the central bank will be working with the banks to reduce their appetite for government securities.
This is the situation that we are seeing. The banks have an incentive to put their resources into government paper. Obviously, we would have wished that they would do otherwise. And we are going to be working with them to gradually sort of move away from the over-reliance on the investments in government paper. It would have to be done gradually. The government itself would have to reduce its demand for funds from the market to allow that to happen effectively.
According to the issuance calendar of the Finance Ministry, for the first 2 quarters of this year, government planned to issue a gross amount of about 43.8 billion Ghana cedis in treasury bills and bonds alone.
The world will soon see one of the biggest tax reforms in over 100 years. This is on the back of the G7 countries' agreement to implement a minimum global corporate tax. This will compel global multinational companies to pay a minimum of 15% corporate tax in their countries of operation instead of the countries where they declare profits. We all have to start putting together the list of multinationals in the country and find out how much revenue will accrue to us.
Finance ministers from the United States of America, Japan, Germany, Britain, France, Italy, and Canada have concluded a discussion that has lasted for a decade. The agenda has been to make the global tax system fairer by ensuring that global multinational companies pay corporate taxes in jurisdictions where they conduct their businesses and accumulate their revenue instead of where their headquarters are located. This will be the single most revolutionary rule to the global tax regime in over 100 years. The British Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, described the deal as a historic agreement on who pays what and where.
Today, after years of discussion, G7 finance ministers have reached a historic agreement to reform the global tax system, to make it fit for the global digital age, but crucially to make sure that it's fair, so that the right companies pay the right tax in the right places.
The U.S. Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, after the meeting, said the new system will change the unfair tax dynamics of the world.
For too long, there has been a global race to the bottom in corporate taxes, where countries compete by lowering their tax rates instead of the well-being of their citizens and natural environments. The G7 has taken significant steps this weekend to end the existing harmful dynamic.
Meanwhile, CEO of International Tax Justice Network, Alex Coburn, has described the 15% global corporate tax rate as unfair. He, however, acknowledges the move will bring an end to unhealthy corporate tax rates inspired by efforts by countries to remain competitive.
This is a crucial part of a shift towards corporate tax justice, setting the idea that we can have a minimum effective tax rate globally and require all multinationals to meet that is incredibly powerful. And it's a narrative shift to end the race to the bottom that we've been pushing for about 20 years. So this is a big moment. But Now it's about getting it right, making sure that the benefits are shared equally, especially with the lower income countries that already lose the biggest share of their tax revenues to this kind of corporate tax abuse.
But how does this global tax revolution impact African economies? Francis Timoboy is a Ghanaian tax analyst.
For us in Africa, we believe that it's going to help if the G7 is going to be sharing the benefits that they are going to derive from some of these activities, because we know COVID has hit low-income countries the most, and we are the people who mostly give these tax incentives and tax havens. So if they're going to share the benefits with these low-income countries, then we'll say that, yes, it's a good deal.
Did you know that even though Ghana has operated a free zones policy for close to 15 years, it hasn't derived much benefit from such arrangements? One would expect a lot of these companies to employ many skilled people, raise a lot of revenue for the country while transferring technological know-how to locals. But that isn't the case. These are part of the reasons why some people are calling for a review of the whole idea of the free zones enclave to ensure the interest of the country is preserved. The Ghana government, as part of efforts to attract foreign direct investment, created the Free Zones Enclaves, which offer international entities a lot of tax exemptions to establish their operations in the country. The focus of this was to create employment, generate revenue and technological transfer. In 1995, the Ghana Free Zone Board was established to oversee the regulation of the various zones. But several years since its inception, Daniel Obekun, tax and trade organizer of the Public Service International Africa and Arab countries, says Ghana is yet to make significant gains from its free zones regime.
If you consider the kind of tax incentives we give out, it's difficult at the current moment to match that those tax incentives, how much we are giving out, to how much foreign direct investment we have received as a result of the incentives, to the how much exports we've been able to make as a result of the incentives we have granted. And so it's difficult to even match all these things, to do even a cost-benefit analysis. It's very difficult. And so it's important that we look at it again, because we are losing these amounts of money at the expense of quality education, at the expense of quality health services, at the expense of energy, at the expense of all the social amenities we are lacking as a country, at the expense of developing our roads. And so I think that there's need for us to consider some of these issues that we have highlighted. And I think that it's also very good that the country itself and a number of countries in the world that are also implementing the special economic zones model are seeing the need to reform.
He further shared some thoughts on the way forward to improve the current situation.
The reform is critical, is important. What should happen is that the various stakeholders, especially the Ghana Free Zones Authority, should allow other experts to get involved in the reform process. They need to allow the academia to get involved. They need to allow workers and civil societies to get involved in the reform process. And on the reforms, we believe that our tax incentive packages that we have given out should be looked at critically. And in fact, if you consider how these models are spread across ECOWAS, you should know that our reform approach should be broad. Because if you institute a reform process, or if you change the tax incentives and all that, these, like you heard, these companies are threatening to move into other countries. It's only when we develop an ECOWAS-based reform where we say that beyond a certain corporate tax rate, we can't give concessions.
Let's see if these ideas will be implemented. Now, to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's affected even the mining industry. Overall, gold production reduced by about 5% last year amid the pandemic. But all hope isn't lost, because players in the sector are confident they will increase production this year by about 15% to make up for the losses last year. We wish them well.
The COVID-19 pandemic has affected the commodity markets in a variety of ways. Company operations have been affected through isolated outbreaks and government-mandated shutdowns, and the demand for many commodities remain low, with a lower near-term demand on the horizon. One commodity that has, however, benefited from the fears and uncertainty associated with the pandemic is gold. After the declaration of the COVID-19 infection as a pandemic in 2020, many investors sought to convert their assets into bullion and its related assets, which directly provided the needed momentum for a sustained rise in the price of gold, which rose by about 5% from April 2020 to April 2021, moving from $1,681 per ounce to $1,759 per ounce. Production of gold, on the other hand, didn't perform so well. Output by the large-scale subsector, which captures members of the Chamber of Mines, dropped by 4.8% to about 2.8 million ounces last year. During his presentation at the recently held 93rd Annual General Meeting of the Chamber of Mines held virtually, the president of the Chamber, Mr. Eric Esubonting, noted that continuous easing of COVID-19 restrictions bodes well for the entire sector, both globally and locally.
Overall, we project that the global supply of gold in 2021 will exceed the corresponding output in 2020. In 2021, the Chamber expects most of its gold-producing member companies to recover from the drags that characterized their operations in the preceding year. Overall, the gold output of producing member companies for 2021 is forecasted to range between 3 million to 3.3 million ounces.
Mr. Subunting meanwhile highlighted the contribution of the Chamber to the revenue of the central government as well as their contribution to the local economy.
Our producing member companies of the Chamber returned $3.67 billion out of the mineral revenue they received of $5.14 billion into the country. This represents 71% of the revenue of producing member companies. The Chamber and its producing member companies prioritize the sourcing of inputs from manufacturers and suppliers in Ghana. This is a direct way to retain minerals value in the country and to stimulate broad-based linkages across different sectors. Pursuant to this, producing member companies of the Chamber spent $4.38 billion in Ghana through payments to manufacturers and suppliers of goods and services, taxes, and financing of social investment projects. In essence, almost 87% of producing member companies' expenditure was retained in Ghana.
Still on the pandemic, its impact still lingers in the agricultural sector. A lot of people in the space are yet to recover. Did you know that over 42,000 agribusinesses are currently closed down? The facts are even worse. Watch this.
A new survey conducted by the Ghana Statistical Service with support from the UNDP and GIZ has found out that about 16,000 agribusinesses have not recovered from the shocks of the COVID-19 pandemic. The study, which focused on firm survival, measured from their operation status the impact of the pandemic on wages and employment, revealed that 42,396 agribusiness firms were closed during the lockdown, out of which 20.9%, constituting 8,860, was as a direct result of the lockdown. The survey also analyzed demand and supply shocks arising from the pandemic and the effects of the pandemic on transportation of inputs and agri-produce, agriculture finance, and marketing. Presenting the findings of the survey to the media, co-coordinator of the program, Anthony Kraka, noted that agribusinesses continue to record marginal decline in sales.
During the lockdown period, about 84,869 firms in the agribusiness sector reported that the average monthly sales decreased. Currently, as many as 77,000 firms still report that compared to the same period a year ago, their sales have declined. During the lockdown, now we want to look at it across sectors. During the lockdown, relative to other sectors, we have a high proportion of agribusiness firms in the service sector about 73%, which reported that they experienced a decline in sales compared to the other sectors. Now, post-lockdown period, the survey indicated that the proportion of firms that were affected by decline in sales were higher for the industry sector relative to other sectors. Now, relatively, throughout the trade period, firms in the agriculture sector were least affected. Agribusiness firms reported that compared to a year ago, close to half of their sales declined. In other words, the firms in agribusiness experienced about 48.8% decline in sales during the lockdown period. However, this decline in sales have declined marginally to about 41.2% post-lockdown. And firms in the service sector were the most affected.
Post-harvest losses have always been a major problem in the agricultural sector in the country. Farmers run losses into millions of Ghana cedis because of their inability to store their produce. This is a major concern for a country that is still striving to achieve food security. For this reason, tomato farmers in Asante Akim North Municipality are calling on the government to help address their concern.
Agogo in the Asante Achim North Municipality of the Ashanti region is one of the notable farming communities in Ghana that produce tomatoes on large scale. The leadership of the Association of Tomato Farmers in the area says post-harvest losses are a regular phenomenon in the area. Speaking to Citi Business News, some of the farmers outline some of the challenges they have been facing in the area.
Na adwuma no kra na eyasen etimi dumre bi a entosi no tomatoes letimi bu the whole Ghana na atofo no ma ebasa chese man ba price bi on pe no mo de mai
times of farming no there say problems are fertilizing bi a say be na scan ni wa de better fertilizer by no there times yes say aban no meboa na o my loan bi na fanto fertilizer and insecticide never apply tomato.
They are thus calling on the government and other stakeholders to come to their aid.
Say ade a your factory ha ana ye dey call your factory price me fi say nke be boan pa de to so mienu ye hia dam kwa krom ha enipa ye tomatoes no ye doso ye etimi drum bi a kankan opebre time no ensu a de nursery kwa etimi we na nurse ye nyensu mfa ngota etima bi nurse hye no mo gya adwuma ne ye omo sebe ensu ben omo moto mbetimi asane de na omo foso a na omo timi de aye
ba no meye moa na ha no ye kuyafo a ye dontosi kese wa ha no mesi factory ni bi man said ye bia ye tomatoes no entimi mpro na enseye so ye factory ni man ya yeso ye betimi anya anigye ani ahoden de aye adwuma ama ba no kra hu se factory obesi no agogo na no ye nya so mfaso
the cabana boy my factory the best store tomato no for long period of time boy pharmacy.
The challenge of post-harvest losses is not peculiar to the Ashanti region. The Bunu region also has its fair share. I still wonder how these farmers feel seeing all their hard work go rotten right in their face. That would definitely be terribly heartbreaking. Manufacturers in the region believe that with the right help, local producers should be able to add value to their produce, which will minimize their losses.
Every year, tons of vegetables waste away during the harvesting season on farms across the country. The Bunu East and Half regions are not exempted from this phenomenon, especially when there is a glut in the system. Data compiled by the Africa Post-Harvest Losses Information System shows that for 2018, Ghana's losses from its top 4 cereals, rice, maize, millet and sorghum, was valued at around $141 million. In line with efforts to change this trend, which has persisted for years, EKA Foods was established 2 decades ago to process pepper into powder for the local market. The company, which currently employs 985 people, processes 12 different vegetables into powder. However, according to the company, it is unable to meet its 50 tons production capacity per year due to financial constraints. The Chief Executive Officer of EKA Foods, Elijah Kwame Ejeyi, has been speaking to Citi Business News.
started. Not tons, so I started about best 200 kilos, and they started. Tiumwa 400 kilos, but the CCI can say it me about best capacity no, a bit my best 50 tons because of cold room no. But CCA no, you 50 tons no, yeah 18 tons, and the whole year no, and because of the financial challenges, since I say raw materials no bar or send it me to more raw materials. Nanka the beer production, but the machines no bet me will be crying no 2 weeks, 3 weeks crying and so machine back cry. It's say raw material anyhow. But I also senka it's raw materials na seasonal na edum no bia o pe bia wunyanti ene ame yakoto cold room said the beyanke betimi a store no more nanka production etimi akoso throughout the year no. It's a financial challenge into no cold room no esiwo empty nti say obi ye order kra no a todo mu no yentimi enye ema no.
The story is not different at the KNUST Fruit Processing Company, which started production in 2019 and is located at Bentukwa. Samuel Ejei-Dua, the general manager of the company, says they are unable to meet their production target because of financial constraints.
Yes, because of financial constraints, so we are not able to meet the production target. For example, within a month or within 2 weeks, we are supposed to produce 20,000 bottles within a month, but because of financial constraints, we are not able. We try to produce 9,000, 8,000 about. So that is a big blow also to us. Yes. Now I'll appeal to the government that we, the small-scale businesses, he should also attend to us, because looking at this factory, first I was having about 20 workers. Even when I started, I was having about 25 workers. Later, I just cut off. Now, as we are speaking now, I have only 10 workers, and we find it difficult during production. But if we have, if the government also comes into our aid, we can employ more youth, as the youth are going out now, fix the country and the rest, because they don't have job to do. But if you're able to get a capital, we can produce more and also employ more youth into this industry.
After hearing about the fuel tanker explosion in the Ashanti region, now when I see any of those trucks drive past, I cringe. 3 people died from that accident. The thing is, with the sighting of fuel stations almost anywhere lately, you'll find them literally everywhere too. So, are we safe? The Institute for Energy Security, IES, believes accidents like these can be prevented if some measures are put in place. And for me, anything that will prevent these accidents from happening is the way to go. 2 fuel tanker explosions have been recorded this year alone that have led to the loss of lives and destruction of properties. 3 people died in a fuel tanker explosion at Onyinanufo in the Ahafua North Southwest district of the Ashanti region last month. About 7 persons were also injured and were sent to the hospital for treatment. A similar situation in February this year also led to the death of 2 persons in Wa in the Upper West region. These incidents started an inferno that raised a number of homes and properties in the area, rendering residents homeless as a result. The Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation Company Limited, BOST, has a mandate to develop and manage a network of storage tanks, pipelines, and other bulk transportation infrastructure throughout the country. According to the Institute for Energy Security, IES, such fire incidents could be reduced if BOST pipelines are all activated. Executive Director of IES, Nana Amoisi II, stated that transporting fuel using pipelines are a safer option and a remedy to such occurrences.
Globally, Transportation modes have their own level of safety. Pipeline transportation is more safer than the rest. Then you can also rely on rail transportation of petroleum products, which is also safer compared to bulk road vehicles. And so what we'll rather propose is that bus being the major transporter of petroleum products across the country, or the primary transporter of petroleum products, should rather look at reviving its pipelines across the country. We have one from Tema oil refinery to the Accra Plains Depot, moving from there to Akosombo Depot via the Mami Water Depot. This line needs to come on stream so that we won't need bulk road vehicles to cut product from Tema to Akosombo. Bus have a pipeline from Bope to Bolgatanga. This pipeline should be operational so that movement of petroleum products from the south to the north can end at Bope, so the pipelines can move it up north. This is safer when you use pipelines. They might, in the long term, also consider moving products by rail.
Away from transportation of petroleum products, let's turn our attention now to the recent increase in transport fares. How are you coping with a 13% increase, and how is it affecting your budget? Maybe we should all get bicycles for our small rounds. Anyways, we interacted with some commuters in the Ashanti region, and they've been sharing their thoughts on the hike so far.
Following the implementation of the 13% increment in transport fares from Saturday, 5th June 2021, many passengers have raised concerns regarding what they describe as outrageous fares they are being charged. According to them, some conductors have refused to abide by the roadmap that has been released.
I can see different prices, different charges from other conductors or mates, as we always say that. But actually, if there is a stagnant, a fixed price that they should be taking, I think it's probably the government should be based on that. And other than that, we citizens, the conductors, adding our own prices to whatever they put on is kind of rude, like it's kind of bad.
In the final seminar, candidate, Mr. say, and penny for any bahu. Now, Omasha say, the Omakano, 1 cedi 20 pesos, and as our GR, and this all do 1 cedi 50 pesos. So, and a pay say, be at me 1 cedi 80 pesos. Me, I send 1 cedi 50 pesos. I'm a minute consocra and Sana Mobile. It's Mr. say, and penny for more money a day. Emla ho anya sa e dia kasakasa entokwa ene nema beble besi me ma hu bi da 20 pesos ho obi wo obi sikan
ti say station car ye ma 2 cedis 20 pesos e station car no onim say station car nti e no mo nti onim say wo kofo no ba omo ne nam like ye fa bi wa omo ne nam na omo ni station omo ankasa ye omo djuma no omo ne ma sa de we difficult maye because onim say wa fa station car ya 2 cedis 20 pesos ba wa fa no kwan na so wa 2 cedis 50 pesos wo be kun because wa jibia ka ho ni kwan say oji.
Meanwhile, leadership of the Progressive Transport Owners Association, PROTUA, in the Ashanti region has also attributed the disagreement that occurred as a result of transport fares increment to unregulated commercial vehicles. According to Joseph Mensah, Ashanti Regional Chairman for PROTUA, lorry terminals that are associated with transport unions charge the right fares as directed by their leadership.
Sir, Oba station Bafroka. Sanity be a border hodada. And the chama or befres percentage no, emroso. Or befres or budget dear, aban pepe. Send the working on the beer, ABT or monsoa, sanity be an obefres roha. Yansu de dear hobe mano. Ama who say be a say na was a media. Na if I know doom area honoa. Drivers in the baby or mobile hour, our money station. And this okofro saa car ne bia ne open na wogie ne mom station de ondumi nyemro de aban de aba no efise omo leaders na akwaje atom nti okwaje bro de aba no a onim so obenya asotwen and they said de ehode no etie no no ti metumi de mensese me bo aka se wa afo no ebetumi age abro de wose omo je efise omo no omo nyanya list bi ekita omo.
He added that plans are in place by stakeholders to coerce unregulated commercial vehicles to join transport unions in order to avoid the incessant disagreements between passengers and drivers or conductors.
Enche sa na montuo no ye beto nsa afra mu ama mo abetenam bi se ehu se car we proto sticker bo ho GP de bo ho concern de bo ho na car se nam krom ha nyina eye under union omu nyina bedi union mra no eso ama obia ntumi nsisi ne yonko wo kesika FM anase bia aka kem we yafa hunu the sticker no a ya de ba bonten no ebe boa ayi saa oha we nyina ede afri ho.
Now to the Citi Business Festival. This whole week was dedicated to micro, small and medium-scale enterprises. The rich panelists had regulators, experienced business folks and more share insights on how such businesses can revolutionize their operations. If you missed out, here's a wrap put together just for you.
Micro, small and medium-sized enterprises MSMEs in Ghana face higher credit constraints as banks lend to a limited number of firms and prioritize large borrowers. This is because many small firms are not profitable enough to repay loans at the current market rates and tenors. This situation has even worsened after the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic, where most economies and businesses have been crippled and are now finding their feet again. But looking at the current economic situation in Ghana, is there hope of a strong recovery for small businesses in Ghana? The Director of Business Banking at Absa Bank, Grace Enimieboa, speaking with Bernard Avle on the Citi Business Festival, expressed optimism about a strong recovery and a better future for MSMEs in Ghana.
A lot of challenges exist, but there are a lot of fantastic new opportunities coming up. I mean, I see people trying to do amazing things in various sectors, in oil and gas, in energy, in agribusiness, in manufacturing, in various services, you know. So overall, I am optimistic that, yes, a year ago, all our conversation was around crisis and how to manage the crisis. I think we're out of that crisis. It's a new normal, and it's really about how we navigate the new normal. But yes, there is opportunity in this market.
But in all of this, what must these small businesses do before seeking various kinds of finance to support their operations?
I think the first and simplest thing is really bookkeeping. I mean, that's like, just get your records in good order, and not because of the bank, but because even as a business owner, at a snapshot, at a glance, you want to be able to see the health and the viability of the business that you are running. So for yourself as a business owner, even before you begin to talk about financing, that's important. Get the right structures in place, have a plan, a vision, a strategy for your business, and begin to be able to forecast what's, based on your current trends, what does a month from now look like? What does a year look like? And based on that, you make decisions to drive your business.
Many stakeholders have stressed the need for businesses to position themselves for expansion by being attractive. In getting the right funds for their businesses, what can these SMEs do to attract the right kind of finance? Grace Enimieboa explains.
There's a lot of informal business going on in this town. Formalize your operations, bring yourself up to speed with the various regulatory stakeholders, because it's part of preparing your business for growth. You know, so invest in the right tools, and then your people. Invest in your people. Find the right people on the journey with you in growing your business.
The government of Ghana, over the past few years, has been trying to formalize the economy. In this regard, every outfit in the various sectors have been on their toes to push this agenda. The Ghana Standards Authority, on their part, has even declared 2021 as a year of enforcement to ensure full compliance with the country's regulations on standards to safeguard lives and property. On Wednesday's edition of the Citi Business Festival, the Director General of the Ghana Standards Authority, Professor Alex Dodu, lamented the somewhat complicated processes that prevent some companies from certifying or registering their products. He then asked for a dialogue to address the situation.
Because as we sit here, a Ghanaian has produced a house using recycled plastic. He is showcasing it to the country, and he has come to the Standards Authority for certification, so that he can tell Ghanaians that when you see this logo, this house is certified. We are encouraged, and in fact, we want other Ghanaians to do more. My plea is that look at the African Continental Free Trade Area. The requirements are stiff. Some companies have complained that the cost of certification or registration or meeting the requirements are too high. My take is, let us begin to have a national conversation. It will be a terrible mistake if our companies are not able to trade because of financial barriers that prevents them from accessing certification or registration or any other state mandated rule. So that conversation should happen.
Professor Dodu also stressed on the need for MSMEs to be conversant to standardization in their businesses, given the critical role it plays in making profits.
Small-scale enterprises, micro-scale enterprises require one thing: knowledge and awareness that there is a standard. Because that is the first thing. Every businessman or businesswoman wants to make profits. So if they know the rules, they'll pay by the rules. But quite often, the average person selling alata samina or plantain chips does not know that there is a rule governing that. Now, these standards are relatively inexpensive, some as low as 50 cedis or 20 cedis. If they know there is a rule, our job as a standards authority, and indeed as FDA or any other state agency, is to train them on how to meet those requirements.
In Ghana, small businesses are major sources of employment, income and personal development for the rural and urban folks. It is estimated that about 3/4 of the Ghanaian population derive their livelihood from this sector. Although they contribute vastly to the Ghanaian economy, one of the major setbacks of the MSME sector is the lack of access to cheaper credits for production. This is due to the financial institutions' fear that these small businesses will not be able to pay back monies lended to them. But the CEO of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, Yofi Grant, opines that these businesses have a huge role to play in staying attractive to allow for easier access to finance. Speaking to Citi TV's Bernard Avle on the Citi Business Festival, he tasked MSMEs to be strategic in their business activities to enable them secure loans from institutions.
But first of all, remember that our capital markets is not deep enough. You said that yourself. The banks do not have enough capital to risk certain businesses. And I'll tell you another thing that will shock you. Statistics says that globally, and it's not unique to Ghana, globally, out of every 100 new businesses that are set up, only 10 survive.
So 10%, 90%?
10%, yeah. 90% fail for various reasons. Sometimes it's not the money, it's not the capital that will make a company rise up. It's focus, it's clarity, it's good governance, and then also making sure that you have your focus on your product. So there are a lot of things happening in Ghana today that I think are global standards. But they've run short because of maybe packaging. Packaging or the ability to market it. You know, and some of these things, it may not necessarily be the big money. It may be small money. But if you are able to demonstrate to a bank that if you give me $10,000, I can give you a global quality product. I know where my market is. They are ready to buy. The bank will chase you because they know that their cash flow is guaranteed. They know that there's a market waiting to buy your product and they'll get paid.
He further highlighted the importance of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area AfTA in pushing small businesses in the country.
AFCFTA gives us the opportunity to think big. Because one of the things that I see is that a lot of our businesses don't think big. They are satisfied with small because they think that the risks of going big are high, so they will limit themselves to it. But the opportunity is there. And that is why I said we need to create a culture of business. We need to start from our schools. I doubt if when you were in secondary school, you had a course dedicated to business or entrepreneurship. Today we don't. Even in universities, some of them don't. But in the other countries that have developed, they do have them. So the man comes out and he's trying to exploit his creativity and his innovation into a business.
The Citi Business Festival is powered by Citi FM, Citi TV and CitiBusinessNews.com and proudly sponsored by Absa Bank with support from IT Consortium and GIPC.
You've heard from some of the guests on the Citi Business Festival, but let me give you one more reason to stay tuned with these stories of some persons that have been able to improve the fortunes of their businesses by implementing some of the ideas shared during the event.
Last year, many businesses in various sectors of the economy struggled to withstand the economic shocks of the coronavirus pandemic. But the CEO of Dr. Bates Solutions, Nanaya Bates, and the CEO of Adinkra Expo, Rita Anyankusi, found ways to take advantage of the market demands that came with the pandemic. Prior to the arrival of the coronavirus pandemic in Ghana, Dr. Bates Solutions specialized in retailing private labels to customers, but quickly expanded her offerings to wholesaling white labels to global companies to meet demand for natural skincare and hair care products from Africa.
We had to stop production during the pandemic, but we had so many clients coming in around that time saying, I want my company to go natural. We're looking at the ingredients in Ghana and we want to work with you guys. And they were just happy to find us in Ghana adding value, formulating products that they don't have to buy the raw materials and pay an expensive formulation prices in the US or in the UK. So just being in that space right now is really exciting.
Rita Anyankusi's investments in branding, packaging, and positioning her Adinkra Expo waist beads paid off when African Americans developed a keen interest in African waist beads during the pandemic.
I'm an e-commerce shop, I sell online. So in one aspect, I was kind of more prepared for Corona than a lot of people. So within the US, a lot of people were stuck at home and out of boredom, they were shopping more than usual online. Although already a culture that we already were used to online shopping, definitely across all different types of industries, you saw a huge surge in online shopping. But one thing that definitely helped me was figuring out how to market my products properly online. And the number one important factor for me and that I've seen with other brands is taking something that we have here, but knowing how to brand it, knowing how to package it, knowing how to create styles that would appeal for people outside, knowing how to show people certain uses that appeal to them.
But even these companies were not spared from the challenges that come with manufacturing in Ghana.
For a startup, sourcing equipment is very difficult. And most of these things are imported from China, from India, and if we go and try and buy these equipment here, they're too expensive for us to use. At the same time, if we go and buy from China and we're coming in, we're saying we're a startup, these are documents, we're trying to get some kind of relief from taxation. It's impossible. Packaging, things that we can't get here. Packaging for our products, we always get requests about packaging, but we can't do it here because the plastic industry or the packaging industry, glass industry doesn't exist. If you import it to, the duty is so hefty that sometimes we lose clients abroad because they then think, oh, we'll just go back to China. So that aspect of importing things that we don't have here and making it easy for startups like us to be able to bring in our equipment, to bring in packaging, to bring things that it's very difficult to find in Ghana, I think will really help startups and people trying to develop products in the country.
For entrepreneurs who rely on beads imported from China, being able to manufacture same locally would exponentially transform their businesses and the nation's economy.
Like these beads and the number of beads that I sell, to realistically be able to produce it, we would need like huge factories. It would be amazing if we could get it here, because some of the issues I was talking about in terms of not being able to find certain colors or whatever, if there was a way that I could source it in Ghana, that would be awesome. So with a lot of the beads I sell, they actually tend not to be made in Ghana. They're a little bit different than like our traditional Krobo beads. But there's also always a marketplace for people that are really appreciative of like handmade goods. So there's a way to push that as well. So definitely if we could get more production in Ghana for the raw materials, yeah, it would be huge, because there, even within beads, there's a huge market for waist beads. It's just something that's become wildly popular in America. And so all the beads that I sell alone, I mean that, yeah, if the raw material started in Ghana, it could really make a big impact. But we're talking not just handmade, we're talking factories and large amounts of production.
I hope you're convinced now. You shouldn't miss out on this week's edition of the Citi Business Festival. But still on MSMEs, it looks like the government is finally listening. It recently launched the Ghana Enterprise Agency. It will focus on addressing a lot of challenges of the sector. This is definitely great news for players in the industry and the country in general.
In Ghana, the importance of the micro, small and medium enterprises sector dominates the business environment. The sector employs more than 80% of the workforce and generates 70% of the national output. Despite relative improvements in the general business environment, Ghana still faces challenges and constraints in terms of MSME and entrepreneurship development as many developing countries. Hence the launch of the Ghana Enterprises Agency and the MSME Entrepreneurship Policy. The policy is composed of structured policy prescriptions aimed at addressing challenges such as access to finance, weak legal and regulatory framework, and duplication of the functions of institutions, among others. President Nana Akufo-Addo highlighted the need for the policy.
The National Micro, Small and Medium Scale Enterprises and Entrepreneurship Policy, being launched today, is the first of its kind in Ghana. It is a policy designed to direct the growth of the sector, provide clear policy direction and opportunities for all actors within the MSME's space to enable them contribute meaningfully towards the development of the country. The Ghana Enterprises Agency, GEA, has been prescribed by the National MSME and Entrepreneurship Policy to implement the policy. The Act establishing the agency makes GEA the apex body to coordinate and promote the growth and development of MSMEs in the country. GEA will lead the way in creating a dynamic MSME ecosystem and entrepreneurial community to help propel Ghana's growth.
Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Enterprises Agency, Kosi Yankee Aye, also revealed that over 300 SMEs will also benefit from a 145 million Ghana Cedi grant under the Ghana Economic Transformation Project, backed by the World Bank.
So the fund, over the years we've looked at the micro, small and medium enterprises. We talk about SMEs being the backbone of the Ghanaian economy. In the past, we had support to build the businesses. Now we realize that through the COVID intervention, there was a need to really strengthen and broaden the base of the SMEs, the small and medium enterprises. Why was that so? Because they created more jobs for Ghanaians and the youth. And so the fund will provide support to them. So when we talk about non-resource businesses, we are not talking about people who are in mining or others. We're looking at those who are manufacturing, those who are into industrialization. To build that, the fund is ready.
We end with highlights from this week's vetting of deputy ministers. I'm sure you want to know how the deputy roads and highways, energy and transport minister nominees fared.
A deputy minister nominee for energy, Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, was the first person to appear before the committee, and he decried the need to develop and boost the potentials of Ghanaians working within the upstream oil and gas sector.
What the government tried to do was to accelerate the acquisition of skills by Ghanaians through the Accelerated Oil and Gas Capacity Program. And so if I have opportunity to work in the ministry, in the oil and gas sector, I will support my minister to give a push to the accelerated oil and gas in terms of mobilizing resources to support the training of as many Ghanaians as we can to be able to work in the industry.
The second was Deputy Minister nominee for Roads and Highways, Stephen Jelula. He indicated that if approved, he would aid the sector minister to combat the increasing spate of highway robberies.
When I was chairman of DISEC during my DCship time, we tried as much as possible to resource the police personnel. I believe that if we are able to get it done, maybe the incidence of armed robbery will reduce. And also, citizens must be vigilant to report any characters that they suspect that may be involved in this thing, so that investigations could be done to arrest them.
During her time before the committee, Deputy Minister nominee for Education, Gifty Chum Ampofo, heavily dealt with the issue of teenage pregnancy.
The Ministry of Education, in collaboration with Ministry of Gender and that of UNICEF, have had a policy which they call sex education. In addition to that, they also have what we call back to school policy. With this policy, what we're doing is to ensure that the child knows what all that she needs to know so far as her reproductive cycle is concerned, and also educate the child about what you do to get pregnant and when to get pregnant. And then if all these counseling do not work and the child gets pregnant, then we get in a system where the child is not stigmatized and she can confidently come back to school. Most often we prefer to come back to the same school so that even though the child didn't take all the steps that we put in place to prevent teenage pregnancy, but the child had been pregnant and had delivered successfully, the future of the child is still important. So we have this back to school project that the child is encouraged together with the teachers and the community to get back to school.
The final person to appear was a Deputy Minister nominee for Transport, Frederick Obeng Adom.
Okada has always been with us for a long time, but the situation now is about its commercialization, which is being barred by the law. And so as at the moment, the Okada commercialization is not legal. However, we will not be blinded about its operation, in which we find in the country. I know there are some stakeholder engagements about whether to go ahead and legalize it or not, but as it stands now, it is illegal.
Our time's up. Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of the Business Weekly Show on Citi TV, your most watched business show in the country. Follow me on Twitter at Mobodu, and don't forget to tune in to the Business Dashboard 10 p.m. sharp every weekday with a repeat the following day at 7 a.m. for all the business news on television. And you can also get regular business news updates from our website, Citi Business News. My name is Michael Obodu. Again, thank you for tuning in. Catch you same time next week. Stay safe, stay informed, and bye-bye.